Welcome to Soltron. This is the video review for Juracops Season 3, Jupino. Here's the box. It's a pretty typical box with a blister pack on the inside and a silver background. And then on the side you can see all the other robots in the series, and all of them actually combine into a final form, which kind of looks like this. So that's what the 4-part combiner looks like. And then in the back you get a CGI view of Jupino and his little core dinosaur, and then his alt mode. And then just shows off the gimmicks on the side, and then the role-playing gimmick, which works with his core dinosaur. Here's how he scales with Mini-Force, Towbot, and Transformers. And here's a close-up of his head sculpt. So he's got a really great, serious-looking head with a humanoid face, a really pointy nose, and then those blue eyes. So it's looking really cool. And then he's got this really great gimmick where you can spin the head around, and then you can get the mouth guard version, which also looks just really great. So really sharp looking figure. I really like police robots, so this one looks really good to me. The aesthetics on his robot mode are really just top notch. Of course, he's got the blue and white, which most cop robots do. And then there's very little kibble going on this back. He's just very clean looking. And he's got, of course, his pistol on the side holster and then a nightstick on the other side. But really great looking robot all together. So I rate this robot mode a definite 9, maybe a 10 for me, just because I like police robots so much. But his legs are a little bit bigger, kind of too large compared to the rest of his body, but the proportions are really great. So that was one of the first things that got me into this series. And this is actually the third series for Jurassic Cops, and the other two series have had some issues, and unfortunately this series 3 is also going to have some issues. But to start with, let's look at his accessories. So he comes with this gun, and these just peg into the wheels on his hips, but he can actually pretty much grab the gun from the holster, which is a pretty cool gimmick, that he can actually pick up the gun from where it's at. And then I guess maybe he could kind of do that with the nightstick too. You'd have to pretend a little bit, but the nightstick fits really firmly in his hand, and then the gun is just very loose. It barely even fits. And I think this is maybe the same as the roleplay weapon for this line. So this line is a lot like Power Rangers, as it also has some roleplay gimmicks to it. But really loving this helmet gimmick. It's really cool. So those are his accessories, nothing too special. Kind of typical of what you'd expect from a cop. And then for his articulation, his head does go 360. And then he does have a little bit of outward shoulder, not much happening there. And then his bicep here is of course locked, as a Korean robot usually is. He does have a good elbow joint. It is 90 degrees, which is nice. And then he does have this pivot for transformation. So a little bit limited on the arm articulation. Bicep swivel would have been really nice. There's no waist rotation. He does have hips that detent outwards, basically one click. Otherwise it's just straight standing pose, which also works for this guy, thankfully. So he doesn't have to be in the A pose, but that's basically all you get. And this figure is the core of a combiner, so it's a real problem that these hips are very, very weak. This is just not going to hold up when you start adding pieces to him. And then he doesn't have any thigh swivel. He does have a bend at the knee, which is almost exactly 90 degrees. So that's nice. And then no toe swivel. And then one little part with his quality controls, these do not clip in, these panels right here. I don't know what they were thinking with that. But overall, great looking figure. I'm pretty pleased with him. And he does have the role-playing gimmick is incorporated in this figure. Is the Dyno core is actually right here, and if you swivel the base of it, that turns on this light up gimmick in his chest, which is just, what an awesome touch. That looks so good. That's such a great gimmick that they included the roleplay gimmick to do something like that. So to get the core out and to start his transformation, you actually rotate this chest piece up, and then this clips into place with these two little pegs right here. And then you get this basically glowing rock. And this glowing rock also transforms into a Spinosaur. And then he does have like a little opening mouth. So he's a translucent red Spinosaur, and he's got an LED inside. And then you just turn that off by twisting the base. And then he's got these ridges to activate the role-playing gimmick. But what a cool little touch that this figure kind of rides inside the robot and lights up his chest. I really like this gimmick, just so cool. So to transform him, you do rotate his head around into that now open chest cavity, and it doesn't quite fit, so you do have to lift the helmet off a little bit to get it all the way in. So that is kind of parts forming, in that his head can't just fit in the gap all the way. And then another little piece of parts forming is these little sirens do come off, and they come off pretty easily. You can transform him without taking those off. You just rotate these, and then you're going to kind of cheat and rotate these a little bit and hope they don't fall off. And then you bend the bicep and bend the fist up and do the same on the other arm. And then you can see is the top of a car already. Okay, so that just leaves the giant legs, which is a little bit more trickier. So you have to rotate this till it clicks in place. And then with the legs, you need to lift up these front panels so that they're out of the way. And then you kind of rotate the legs into position, get them ready. And then you're going to, oh, I forgot to show off. Of course, he's got full frontward kick, full backwards kick, and you can hear he's got really strong ratchets. And then you can rotate, these little waist skirts are going to rotate to become the front of the car. And then there's this little side panel, which just closes this up to close a gap. And then this is the most complicated part of the transformation, is all this stuff that happens in the foot. Is you have to get this gap filler, that moves down here. And then there's a spoiler hidden inside his calf, so you're going to push that out. And then the bottom of his foot and his heel are going to fold up, and then they're going to slide on this pin sideways, and then the toe just points up to the shin. And then finally the part that filled in the calf is just going to rotate all the way to the back, and now you have the tail lights of the car. And then you do the same thing with the other leg. Okay, and then of course these two back halves are going to sort of sandwich together. And then you're going to take what was the heels and just push them over to make the trunk of the car. And then the spoilers are going to clip together in kind of a jigsaw shape, which helps hold everything back here together, because it definitely wants to push apart and not clip together. And then you have this little panel, which was his butt flap. Basically, you just flip that up. And there you have his vehicle mode, which is a pretty good look. Not a bad looking cop car at all. It's very interesting and stylized. And here's what it looks like with his Spinosaur next to it. I think they scale pretty good together. They look like they would go together somehow. And then there's no weapon storage in this mode, unfortunately. You can clip them into the wheels, but then the weapons are going to rotate as you roll the wheels, so it doesn't really work very well. So that was an unfortunate oversight, but overall very stylized, interesting looking vehicle mode. And here he is with one of my favorite Mini-Force cars, so he's a little bit smaller. And then here he is with Transformers Deluxe, so he's a lot larger than that. This alt mode I'd give like a 7. It's not super special to me. I do like the sirens, but they're kind of weird because they're angled. It just doesn't really do anything special for me, so it's kind of basic. And then overall, I really do like this figure. I'd recommend getting this figure. I'll review the combining figure next, and that's where this line I think is just going to fall apart. I was really looking forward to this. I think it would have made a good replacement for Power Rangers, but after combining the first robot that goes with him, I think the combined form is just going to fail pretty horribly. So this figure I highly recommend. You should definitely get it. So I got mine from my eBay guy soon, or the It's Toy shop, and I'll leave a link in the description. I also recommend, I really liked from Season 1, Jutego, which was the Stegosaurus bus figure. You should definitely get your hands on that figure. I bought him once. I'm definitely going to rebuy him because I think he'll go really well with this guy. Okay, so the combined form is next, and that's where everything kind of falls apart.